Well, well, well. Looks like Novrtisch has made P90. Let's see if it's any good, shall we? So, here's what you get in the box. And I'm just kidding. There's a flashlight in there. Just inside the box, you get the quick start guide, the SSR90 itself. Here we go, like so. Absolute beauty. In the package, you also get a cleaning rod and a single 100-round magazine. That's it. Just like other higher-end AGs, this doesn't come with a battery or the charger included, so you'll have to get those separately. Novritsch has all the links to the recommended batteries and stuff like that available in the product description. It's also a shame that the SSR90 doesn't come in a hard shell case like some of his other guns do, but at least the case is available separately if you want it, and it's pretty decent price at 45 euros. This gun was sent to me for free by Novritsch, but no money changed hands, and Novritsch has no influence on what I put in this video, so you can be sure that I give my full and honest feedback on this gun. As of making this video, I spent one full game day with this gun, so I have some idea of how it performs and how it feels. I also have quite some experience with designing different accessories and upgrade parts for airsoft guns over at TRIDOS.DESIGN, so I have quite a good understanding of how guns work and what does what. The SSR90 has a fiber reinforced nylon body. It feels very sturdy and solid, feels good in the hand. There's a little bit of creaking here and there, but overall it's very solid. The front rail assembly is all aluminum and CNC machined. Looks very nice, very sturdy, lightweight, nothing to complain there. For those not familiar with the P90 platform, this gun is fully ambidextrous, including the safety switch, which is a rotating one, including mag release, which can be accessed from both sides, and also you have QD mounts on both sides as well. The charging handle on this gun doesn't do anything, unlike on the Crytek, on which it opens the hop-up window, but on this gun the hop-up window is just manual, so you'll have to open it and close it when you're done with hop-up adjustment. The trigger on the SSR90 is a two-stage trigger, so when it's set on semi, you can only shoot semi. But when you set it on full auto, it's actually two-stage, so the first stage is still semi. And if you go further and pull it all the way down, it's full auto. So this is pretty nice since you can pretty much leave it always on full auto if it's allowed in your country. And that means you can easily take a few shots, and if you still don't get the enemy, then you can go ahead and just pull it all the way and give it a quick burst. The trigger itself can feel a little bit mushy, but once you put the battery inside and you actually shoot it with it, it's super responsive, and you totally forget about any of that. In the front, you'll find plenty of M-LOK rail attachment places. The flash hider is mounted on a 14mm counterclockwise thread, so you can easily unscrew it and mount any of your suppressors or tracer units. On the back, you'll find the rubberized butt pad, which also acts as the battery compartment. One thing that feels like an afterthought on this specific butt pad is that there's a specific way on how you take it off. Normally you would slide it up or down on different P90s, but this one is a bit different. If you don't do it as Novritsch instructs, then you might damage it. You just basically pinch it from one side and then you can open it. In case you do happen to damage it, there's spare parts for this available from Novritsch directly and costs like 8 euros. Putting it back on is the exact same procedure. Just pinch it on one side and then push it in place. This can feel a bit finicky at first, but you'll get used to it, and you only use it once or twice a day, so it doesn't matter. As a bullpup, the gun feels very nice and balanced. Most of the weight is in the back here where the gearbox is located. Once you shoulder it, it's really nice and comfortable. One thing that I noticed after playing a full game day though is that initially the overall grip can feel a bit cramped. And actually after a few hours, my hand really started to hurt. But I think this is something you get used to it. Just like it was when I first got into sniping. I got a sore shoulder for a few days after the first game day. But after that, I got used to it and I didn't have any issues whatsoever. Another thing that took some getting used to is how short the gun is and how big of a difference is there between height of the barrel and the sights where you aim. On a normal AG, since the barrel is way in front, you always check where you're putting the barrel. For example, if you want to shoot through some cracks or some tight spaces, you just usually put the barrel and you can see that it's in that place and you can shoot through. But with this one, it's so close that you don't actually notice where the barrel is. So you always have to keep in mind that when you're shooting through a crack, that your barrel is quite a big distance below your red dot. But since the sight is so high up compared to the rest of the gun, it's actually very easy to cheek weld it, even with a full mesh mask. Oh, and the SSR90 is now officially licensed by FN Herschel, and as you can see here, there are the official markings of the P90, but honestly, I couldn't care less. You could get these laser etched by yourself, probably for like $10. I personally don't care about them, but for some of you, it might be important, I don't know. The SSR90 comes with a single 100-round magazine. It's semi-transparent, so you can always see how many BBs you have left. One thing to note is that on the first batch of the SSR90, there's a weird thing that the magazine is not fully aligned to the nozzle. So when you insert it, to fully see it, you actually have to pull it back a little bit. It's just like a half a millimeter or a millimeter, and then it clicks into place. I spoke to Novritsch and he confirmed that this is something that will be fixed on the further batches. We might have a fix available for this issue over on TRIDOS.DESIGN, so keep an eye out on our Facebook page for more info. Due to their size, these aren't really mags that you can throw in any pocket you wish and be good to go, so you'll most likely need to pick up some of the Novrtisch P90 pouches, which are actually really nice. Even then, it can be a little bit tricky. For example, I run a bell belt setup, and it was quite tricky to mount these in a comfortable place. I ended up running only 2 spare mags, one on each side, just because if you mount them in the front, it really prevents me from crouching or doing some maneuvering around the field. So I think these are better suited for plate carriers and mounting them horizontally, or for some chest rigs where you can mount them vertically. You'll probably be able to mount 3 or 4 of these on your setup, but even then, if you're running these 100-round mags, that's not a lot of BBs. Novritsch will have a 180-round magazine available at some point, and depending on when you watch this video, they might be already out. But on launch, they're still not available and in production, and unfortunately Novrtisch wasn't able to give us any estimate on when these will come. But once they are released, I think those should be your go-to option for your SSR90, no questions asked. There are some alternative magazines available on the market, but there are quite few that I could actually recommend running on this gun. Now for low cap magazines, there's actually quite a good option, which is the 70-round magazine made by SEMA. Funnily enough, this fits even better than the original Novrtisch 100-round magazine, which doesn't have this issue where you need to pull it back. Normally, I really don't like the fake bullet looks on the inside of the magazines, but on this one, they look actually quite awesome. And this is a good magazine either for running a low cap or just having one that you can put on display when you have the gun mounted to a wall or on a gun stand. I also tried out the SEMA high cap magazine, which I was pleasantly surprised with. Since the magazine is mounted horizontally, you can't really rely on having the BBs gravity fed to the winding mechanism. So this magazine has this weird spring-loaded mechanism which pushes all the BBs to one side. And this is a good thing because normally the high cap magazines are really loud when you run around, but this one is actually quite nice. There isn't that much rattling. However, the winding mechanism is located on the bottom of the magazine, which means you have to take it out when you want to wind it. And I had a few cases where the BBs got stuck and the winding just went in a free fall, and basically you had to wind it up from the start. I wouldn't recommend this as a primary magazine, but honestly I think this is a pretty good option if you want to run backup magazine with a lot of BBs, which saved my ass quite a few times in the game day. Now, the only other large mid-cap magazine on the market, to my knowledge, is the Crytek P90 magazines, which I'm sure they're amazing quality and they have more features to it. You can switch between 50 and 200 round magazine, but honestly, it's hard to justify the cost. Here in Europe, they cost 40 euros. I would advise to just hold on and wait for Novrtisch to release the 180 round magazines. Another interesting quirk I found with the magazines is actually how you load them. Since the feed port is actually not really standard M4 style feed port, it's a bit different. The regular speed loaders don't really fit nicely in there. And honestly, it would be quite a terrible idea to try to load 180 rounds with the standard speed loader. Thankfully, I happen to have my trusty Odin speedloader with me, and together with the AirTech universal speedloader adapter, I was able to feed them quite fine, but the way you have to hold the magazine is actually quite tricky and it's not very convenient. So you still have to find a place to put it on the table, and then it's very tricky. So what I did is I made this low profile adapter for Odin speed loaders, which installs in like this. And this allows you to precisely put the speed loader onto the mag. And then if you put it on the table, or you can rest it on your leg, for example, if you kneel, you can go ahead and very easily crank the speed loader, and the magazine stays very nice in place. There's no extra movement, so it's actually very comfortable to load it this way. You can even do it probably two-handed. This is something that we're planning on releasing on TRIDOS.DESIGN. Something to keep in mind if you're planning on getting an SSR90. This is probably a must-have attachment if you don't want to lose your mind loading these magazines up. So this right here is the 1.5 joule version. This gun also comes in the 1 joule version, which to my knowledge, the only difference is the internal spring. So you should be able to quickly swipe between different springs and change your output. The average rate of fire for this one using 11.1 volt LiPo is 25 rounds per second. The trigger is super snappy and responsive, even with no pre-cocking enabled. I also tested different weight BBs with this gun to see if there's any limit to what BBs it can hop. But I went up to 0.49 gram BBs and it was able to lift them with no problems, even without maxing out the hop. And what I feel like is the sweet spot is around 0.32 gram BBs, which I ran during my game day. I was able to quite consistently reach distances of 60 and even up to 70 meters with short bursts. 60 meters, you are getting a little bit of dispersion of the BBs. But if you do a burst of 3 to 5 BBs, you should be able to quite consistently hit a human-sized target. That's honestly really impressive. Sound-wise, it's not too bad. There's a little bit of twang inside the gearbox, which could be fixed by shimming out the spring guide a little better, but overall a great performing gun. So this is my first P90, but I was super impressed on how easy it comes apart. So with just one push of a button, you can take apart the upper receiver and you already have access to your barrel and the whole chamber assembly. This has a 260mm inner barrel. It's made out of brass and it's a 603mm barrel. It's straight, and on the inside it's very nicely polished, so no issues there. It's still a good idea when you first receive the gun to give it a good clean on the inner barrel, so there might be some schmoo still inside. The hopper chamber on this P90 variant has been fully redesigned, and it's probably one of the best hopper chambers on any AEG I've seen out of the box. The main body is CNC machined aluminum, with the rotary part being plastic, and then on the inside you have a hard nub that pushes on a large soft rubber nub. The adjuster has no clicks, and the movement is super smooth. I've touched quite a few hop-up chambers, and this feels on par with the max model hop-up chambers for M4 platform in terms of quality and feel. This is definitely a great hop-up chamber. So while it's not a true TDC, it's still just as good, and you'll probably never need to upgrade this chamber ever. Now moving on to the bucking that's inside here, they have done something I've never seen in any other AEG out of the box. They've gone ahead and flat hopped the bucking. Now normally I don't love flat hopping, I haven't had great experience with it, but the way they have implemented it here honestly made me rethink that decision, and the performance speaks for itself. It's really good. On the inside we find custom maple leaf 60-degree bucking. This one has no alignment ridges or a nub on the inside. This has two main benefits. Number one, this bucking can't be misaligned. The surface which contacts the BB is actually created by the soft rubber nub, which is located in the hover chamber. And since it pushes down perfectly vertically onto the bucking, even if the barrel is slightly tilted to one side, the pressure on the BB is going to be applied perfectly from the top, and there's going to be no curving to either side. And number two, since the bucking doesn't have any alignment features, that means if one place of the bucking wears out due to the contact happening repeatedly, you can effectively just take the bucking and turn it sideways a little bit, and it's going to be a basically brand new bucking. What's even more interesting, they've gone ahead and made the hop-up window cutout much bigger. It's 7mm in length. That's a lot. This is important for a flat hop because it allows for the bucking to be stretched evenly to avoid any damage to the bucking by pinching it to the sides of the hop-up window cutout, which would otherwise either lead to a puncture on the bucking or you could start leaking some air around the nozzle due to bucking being stretched. If there's one thing I've learned over the past few years designing and making different upgrade parts for airsoft replicas, is that given the barrel is straight and somewhat polished, and the air seal is decent, 95% of the performance and the accuracy from the gun comes purely from the hop-up system and the bucking. The performance of this AG speaks for itself. It's probably one of the best AGs I've shot to date, and this one is out of the box, no upgrades whatsoever. Then moving on to the battery compartment, we find quite a big space for different kinds of batteries. Obviously, Novritsch sells batteries that are already compatible and nicely fit in the place. This gun comes pre-installed with high quality Dean's connectors. That's always a good plus. It also has quick spring exchange, which honestly is a must-have for any gun that it goes above $300 retail price. Another big part of what makes the SSR90 stand out from the competition is the pre-installed programmable MOSFET. This one allows you to switch between the semi and binary trigger. Binary trigger being a shooting mode where it shoots a BB when you pull the trigger and also when you release the trigger. So it's effectively twice as fast as a single fire mode. And then it also allows you to switch between the auto and burst mode. You can also set 5 levels of pre-cocking. So that means that the spring and the piston is already pre-charged. And once you pull the trigger, it just pushes it over the final step and then releases the piston. This can improve your responsiveness to the trigger. But even with pre-cocking disabled and 11-volt LiPo, this gun feels really responsive and snappy. The fact that it's there, it just gives more option to the customer, and that's always nice to have. If you're interested more about programming this MOSFET on the SSR90, you can go to the Novritsch Academy website. You'll be able to learn more about it in detail there. One thing to note that if you do decide to go with the pre-cocking, I would strongly advise you to disable it at the end of the game day or take out the spring, as leaving the spring compressed for long periods of time can lead to some power loss in the spring. I had to confirm this with Novritsch himself, but it appears that the MOSFET can actually detect whether you're using a 7.4 or 11.1 volt LiPo. Depending on which you plug, it will respectively beep 2 or 3 times, indicating the count of the cells. Here I have an 11.1 volt LiPo and beep 3 times, meaning it detected 3 cell LiPo. That means you can run either 7 or 11 volt LiPos and don't need to worry about discharging them too much. And even if you forget it inside a gun, it will start beeping as soon as it drops below the correct voltages, so you can still catch it in time and remove it from the gun and safely charge it back up. Taking out the gearbox on the SSR90 is also a very easy thing to do, which was also refreshing to see compared to M4 platforms. You only need to take out 2 screws. This plate then comes out, and you can basically just drop the whole gearbox out of the case, and that's it. This is super nice to have. The MOSFET looks like an in-house design that's made by Novritsch. That's cool to see. And also another thing I noticed is that there are no Warranty Void stickers on the gearbox as far as I can see. In fact, they even have videos on the Novritsch Academy instructing you how to correctly take this gearbox apart and put it back together. This is super useful. Having a nice detailed video on how to do that correctly is a very big plus for beginners and non-techie persons. I took apart the gearbox off camera, and here's what I can tell you. Overall, it was well greased. There wasn't any dry spots. There wasn't excessive grease. The gearbox uses bushings instead of ball bearings. There's probably going to be a huge war going on in the comment threads, but bushings generally tend to be a longer lasting option. Maybe it's not as high performance, but it will definitely outlast any bearings. The gears are actually pre-shimmed quite well. There's no excessive movement between them. Maybe if you're an expert tech, you could maybe improve it a little bit. Angle of engagement is already adjusted correctly, so no issues or modifications required there. And the nozzle was sealing 100%. There was no air leaking anywhere. Anything about the gearbox itself is solidly built, and there's no real flaws that need to be fixed out of the box. Another nice thing when you're getting a Novritsch gun is that they go the extra mile and they handpick several accessories that go well together with this exact gun, so you don't have to worry about compatibility issues with certain accessories. And the SSR90 is no exception, and they sent over some of the accessories as well. So let's try them on. Wow, nice. So starting from the top, we have the Novrtisch version 3 red dot, which is honestly the best one in my opinion from all the red dots they offer. Yes, it's not cheap, but I think it's worth it. The clarity on this one is excellent. The dot is very sharp and it has 12 levels of brightness. The only complaint I have on this red dot particular is that it's quite tricky to unscrew the caps on the elevation and windage. But once you do get them off, you can turn them around and use the ridge on the top of the cap to actually adjust the windage and elevation. Plus, out of all the Novritsch red dot, this one fits the P90 look the best. But obviously, if you have a red dot laying around, just use that one. This one also has a rubberized casing around the center part. In case you bump it somewhere, it's not going to be immediately scratched or dented. So that's a nice to have feature. They also sent us the small QD suppressor together with a flash hider. Now I know that on gas guns like a 623 and sniper rifles, suppressors in airsoft do actually work and they can reduce sound quite significantly. And yes, if you're wondering, we have done proper tests with sound measurements. Those are going to be linked down below in the description. But one thing I've always wondered if the suppressors also have an effect on AEGs. And as it turns out, they don't. We did a few tests at 10, 25, and 50 meters, both shooting directly towards the camera and microphone and also to the side away from you so you can't hear the BB swooshing by. And in both cases, all the tests were identical. So there's no real benefit in running the suppressor apart from looking cool. The one thing you can do is maybe put a tracer unit inside of it and that might work, but you could just mount the tracer straight on the 14mm counterclockwise threads and you'll probably be better off with less weight on the front. I haven't tried the opposite of the suppressor, which is the amplifiers. I haven't tried them on this gun, so I can't comment whether those are working or not. A more useful attachment that Novritsch makes for the P90 is the M-LOK extended rail on the front. It's made out of aluminum, so it's not that heavy, and it can be useful for mounting a scope cam or maybe a PEC box out there. What's funny about this one, in a lot of pictures, Novritsch shows the QD silencer used together with the M-LOK and it definitely looks cool. However, when these are installed together, you can't really access the button on the QD suppressor. So the only way to remove the suppressor is only together with the flash hider, which you still have to use the hex key to unscrew the grub screw. So that kind of beats the purpose of the QD suppressor and just adds the extra weight of the flash hider, which is made out of steel. I would strongly advise not to get the QD silencer in case you're running it together with the M-LOK rail. These just don't work great together. A more useful accessory for some people might be a low profile rail that replaces the whole M-LOK top part right here. I'll throw a picture somewhere up here. While functional and overall it probably reduces quite a bit of weight, I think it still looks kind of weird and loses some of its P90 identity. But at least this option is available, and the more options, the better. Apart from that, I would suggest getting a 1-point QD sling, since the gun only comes with one QD attachment on the back. But in case you already have a 2-point QD sling, you could just get a QD point M-LOK attachment right here, and you're pretty much good to go. I personally would just get the red dot and the sling, and you're pretty much off to the races. Oh yeah, and the P90 pouches for the magazines are actually really high quality. Totally recommended. Probably the best option on the market right now. They might not be cheap, but they're gonna definitely last you a lifetime. Just as with any gun, this one is not perfect either. There are some small things that personally annoy me and might be useful to know before buying it. This piece right here, which is the 40mm counterclockwise threads, is actually a separate piece and it's not really fixed in place. I had to glue it in to prevent it from spinning around. Maybe like a grub screw from the side would have been nice to have, since the suppressors and the flash hider comes with a grub screw to fix it in place, but there's no point of the grub screw if the piece which it mounts onto spins itself. So that's definitely one thing that could be improved. The next thing, which is already what I mentioned, is that the magazines on the batch 1 gun is slightly misaligned. As you can see, you need to pull it a little bit backwards and then push it down. This is a little bit annoying, but I think this is fixable, and Novritsch himself assured me that this is a thing they're aware of and they're going to be fixing it. Another thing I noticed is that the bolt track, which doesn't really do anything, it kind of rattles, which is a little bit annoying. And for this as well, Novritsch assured me that this is something they're aware of and they're going to be improving it on future batches. I think I already mentioned the incompatibility with the QD silencer and the M-lock. The fact that you can't really access the latch on the QD suppressor while you have the M-lock mounted, that's quite lame. I think they shouldn't be marketing it, especially showing it in the pictures. Plus, the silencer on this gun doesn't have any effect on the loudness of it anyway. Last but not least, one thing that I found out the hard way, which I did not intentionally do, is I accidentally dropped the backside of the SSR90 on hard floor here in my office when I was taking it apart. And I actually found out that the body, especially the backside, is all held in place with pins and glued together. So what that means is once the glue is a little bit cracked, you can kind of open up the body. Obviously, this is not a big deal, as you could easily just take some epoxy glue and put it back together. And also the fact that Novritsch has basically all parts, including the body itself, available as a spare part. In case you completely destroy it beyond repair, it's only 26 euros for a whole new body. Even though the body might not be perfect, it's good to know that there is replacements available in case something happens to it. Something that I already mentioned is the butt pad. I think the way how it takes out is a little bit awkward, but again, it's something that you do it once or twice a day and it's probably fine. One last thing I could think of being a little bit of an inconvenience is to load these magazines, you'll probably need to get an Odin style speed loader, which I already showed it earlier in the video, and you'll need to get some kind of an adapter. We'll be making one, and there's some available already on the market, which are a little lower quality, but they're still gonna do the job. And so yeah, that's something that you need to probably take care of, as it's gonna be a big pain in the butt to load them with the standard speed loaders. The main question remains, is this gun worth 400 euros? If you're into P90s, I think this is an excellent choice. If I would have to pick between this one and the Crytek P90, keep in mind I have held that one in my hands. Honestly, this felt better, and now knowing the performance and internals, I would pick this one any day of the week. I was extremely impressed with the performance. I have an SSR15, it's definitely very responsive, but the actual performance and the accuracy of it wasn't that amazing. This one, however, blows it out of the water. The only other gun that I've shot that's better out of the box was ASG Evo Scorpion. That one was just marginally better. Honestly, this gun shoots really amazing. The trigger response, the rate of fire is absolutely stunning, especially when the 180 round magazines finally come out. This gun is going to be a CQB beast. And not only that, but I think you could easily modify this with a bit of a longer inner barrel and run it as a DMR. Overall, this is a great package. You get great accessories along with it. There's a lot of features that doesn't come by default in any other P90 out of the box. You have to realize that Novritsch is no longer one dude. They are a company. This is not a Jing Gong with just a Novritsch logo on it. Almost every part inside it has been changed. Build quality, the QD mounts, there's a lot of things going on. This is only the second AEG Novritsch has released. The first one was an SSR15, which was a rebranded Avalon with a Gate Titan pre-installed. There wasn't much going on internally, but this gun is pretty much rebuilt ground up on the inside. That's a big deal. And if Novritsch keeps this up on all of the other AEGs he's planning to release, I think we're gonna have some pretty exciting options available out of the box, ready to go. You also have to keep in mind that you're not only getting this gun, but you're also getting the customer support from Novritsch. You're also getting all the spare parts available directly from the supplier. There's high quality instructional videos. This is especially important for beginners. If this is your first or second gun, having the ability to watch someone walk you through every single part of this gun, showing you how it works, how you properly take it apart without breaking anything, that's a big deal. This definitely gets TRIDOS recommends badge. I'm extremely impressed with what they've done internally, and I'm very excited to see what they come up with next. So if you enjoyed this video, please leave a like and consider subscribing. We do these videos quite rarely, but when we do, we try to do them properly and thoroughly. So hope you enjoyed this video of the SSR90 review, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.